Well, good morning, guys. It's good to be with you. As I was looking around this morning, there are a lot of new faces. Welcome to River. We're excited that you're here. My name is Stuart. I'm not normally the guy that's up here, but I do get the opportunity today. I'm one of the leaders here. And this morning, I get to share with you one of the new initiatives that we're kicking off this week that will run through the end of May. And we're calling it River Together. I think we've got the logo up there on the screen. And so what I want to do this morning is take a little time and introduce what is this River Together? What are you talking about? How are we going to do this? What does this look like? We'll get into some of the nuts and bolts. But really what I want to do is kind of give some context, tell a story of who we are, where we've come from, and as a church, as a body, where are we going? What's next? River was launched about 15 years ago, I believe, so we're officially teenagers. And when we were being sent out, when we were being launched from the church that kind of sent us out, there was a meeting one Sunday night where they got everybody together to pray over kind of the founding core, those who were leaving. And during the course of that evening, a wise, seasoned leader rose. And it was a difficult time because we loved that church. We weren't looking to leave that church by any means. We still love that church. But we also sensed that God was doing something new and that we were being called or sent out, set apart to be involved in that new that he was doing. And so this wise leader rose, and everyone knew him, everyone respected him, everyone kind of was watching to see what he would say. And he got up and he started praying Proverbs 11, 24, and 25. Proverbs 11, 24, and 25, which says this: there's one who scatters and yet increases all the more. There is one who withholds what is justly due. And a lot of times that imagery is associated to a wage, what someone has earned. There's one who withholds what is justly due, but it results only in want. The generous one, the generous man, the generous woman will be prosperous. And he who waters will himself be watered. And he stood and he prayed this over the church that was sending us out, that they as a people would be a generous people, that they would gladly give back to Jesus these people that had invested in that church and loved that church and spent their lives, many of us in that church, and that founding church would send us out, scatter us out, and be generous with us. And then he prayed that over us. He prayed it over you, that you would be a generous people, that you would scatter broadly what he has given, that you, as you water one another, the city, the university, that in turn God would ensure that we are watered and healthy and alive and full and vibrant. As I've thought back over the last 15 years of our church, I can recall so many instances where this verse, this idea of being a generous people, has shown itself to be true time and time and time and time again. Where we have invested and given and not withheld, and instead of it resulting in want, tiredness, being dried up, being used up, being pushed to the side, it's actually restorative. We find that we are watered even as we are giving ourselves or of ourselves. So things like, if you have been with us for a while, you might have heard things like Jefferson Elementary School or homework camp. These were a couple of initiatives that we started in our early founding years, where we were invested heavily in an elementary school here in Norman, and we ran an after-school program, and 60, 70 kids would come, and they would be tutored on a weekly basis. And you guys were the ones that ran it. Like the leaders of the church didn't run this. It was people from the church stepping up, giving of themselves. It was very demanding. It was trying. It was low income. And God blessed. And he blessed, and he blessed, and he blessed. I look at the community group leaders in this room, those who have led our small groups. You guys have invested, poured yourselves out, and God has rewarded, maybe in ways that you do not yet realize, but he has given abundantly, and he will continue to water as you guys continue to water. So that's who we are. That's where we've come from. We want to be a generous church. We want to be a church that waters others. Now let's think about who we are today, where we're at. God has positioned us and begun to open up some new opportunities for us. And there is a growing sense among you that he is doing something new, that he is doing something fresh. I've heard it in questions like, hey, when are we going to start back with our group life? Or, hey, I have this idea. Do you think River would be on board with doing, and then fill in the blank? There are these dreams, these ideas, this initiative that I see in you guys that's starting to work itself out. There's a sense that God is doing something new. So we have some visual markers of this, right? For those maybe who are new in the room, who haven't been with us for a long time, we're in the final stages of purchasing this property. We've never owned a building before. We've never been, we've always rented. We've always leased. We've never owned. And we are now in the process, hopefully in the next couple weeks, of closing on this property, and that's going to change the trajectory of our church, because for the first time ever, we're going to have an anchor, a place that belongs to us. In this neighborhood, the 3 schools that are within a 1-mile radius, the high school and the 2 elementary schools, that's now home base for us. That's where we start. The people that live in these neighborhoods, the parks in this area, that's where we want to see the kingdom of God start to break out and move as people interact with their neighbors up and down these streets, as we get out and love these people, right? So we have visual markers, but there's also these stirrings that I'm seeing in other places. Back in February, we did something called Rebuilder's Prayer. Tom and Brianna Peterson helped lead that time up. And there were some that gathered at 9:30 just before this time on a Sunday morning just to get together and pray over what God was doing and what we sensed him doing. And there was this repeated theme over those weeks throughout those prayers that God is doing something new. So things like, God, would you raise up laborers? That's a general prayer that a lot of times you might hear in a meeting like that. But then it began to get more specific. God, would you help us labor in this neighborhood? Would you raise up people who will love this neighborhood? God, will you raise up laborers who understand discipleship in the context of community? How to pour themselves out, how to lead other people, not just in a one-on-one setting, but in a communal sense. God, will you raise those people up? Will you send those people to us? Because there's a sense that there's a big new work, and we need the laborers to do that work. There's something new. So the question is, if God is doing something new, Father, if you're doing something new, how do we then align ourselves with what you're doing? And that's essentially what we're going to talk about this morning, this initiative. We're calling it River Together. And it's basically, in sum, we are moving back into group life as a church. We're getting back into sharing our lives with one another. You know, one of the things that the pandemic did is it really stretched us on multiple fronts, and it made it really difficult for us to gather in small groups, which has been one of the hallmarks of this church since our founding 15 years ago. Small groups, community groups, group life, whatever you want to call it, has been at the core of who we are and what we do. Well, not only did the pandemic impact how we do that. Who never wants to be on another Zoom call in their life? Thank you. But it also incredibly stretched our leaders, those people who are giving of themselves and leading those groups. It stretched them to the max. And so for a while, we have taken a strategic pause on group life because we didn't want to push further and potentially burn out those people. But we sense that God's doing something and it's time to re-engage. So how are we going to do that? Well, River Together. It's an initiative to help us re-engage with one another in genuine, Christ-centered community. The idea was really born in one of our elders' meetings about 5 months ago, and as we were kicking around ideas about, hey, what's next, and kind of how do we do this, how do we re-engage, this idea came up. At the time, it was called Supper Club. That's a little bit too limiting for what we're going to do, so we've changed the name. But the idea was Supper Club. Why don't we begin to gather in homes strategically? There won't be a lot of content. There won't be a ton of form and structure, but the desire is to help people get back into one another's lives on a consistent basis. Let's do this. We anticipated that there was another COVID surge coming. It hit earlier this year. We didn't anticipate how significantly it would impact our church. As a lot of you guys know, we had to go back to virtual for several Sundays just because of so many of our critical Sunday morning people were out, the people who run the show. But we're through that. It's time to reemerge. It's time to engage. I don't like the term new normal, but in this sense, in this area, it fits. What we're doing is looking for a new normal. We are not the same people we were 15 years ago when this church was launched. So what we're doing is saying, Jesus, we sense you're moving us in a new direction. We sense you're doing something new. How do we do that? How do we join you to do that? So let me give you a little bit more of the foundation behind what we are going to be doing, and then we'll wrap it. If you guys have any questions, I'll be out in the back. I think Brent will join me and maybe a couple others, and you guys come and ask questions. But here's what we're going to be doing. Really, the foundation is built off of the idea that you'll see often in the New Testament. Acts 2 is where a lot of people will point to. Acts 2, 46 through 47. They worshiped together in the temple each day, met in homes for the Lord's Supper, and shared their meals, broke bread with great joy and generosity. all the while praising God and enjoying the goodwill of the people. And each day the Lord added to their fellowship those who were being saved. Repeatedly throughout the story of Acts, elsewhere throughout the New Testament, you will see the people of Jesus get together in a home, break bread, share their lives, share their hearts. In a nutshell, that is River Together. That's what we want to do. So how are we going to do that? We've kind of outlined 3 primary criteria. Is it up there on the screen? It will be. 3 primary criteria. There need to be 2 or more from River present. We need to share a meal if possible. And then we're going to ask that you engage in a marker question. I'll get to that in a minute. But let me start with bullet number 1. 2 or more from River. Why is that important? Well, it's pretty self-explanatory. We're not going to limit it to 2. We hope there's a lot more. In fact, we're not going to limit it to River people. And by the way, if this is your first Sunday, we consider you a River person. What we want is we want you to be getting together. Does that make sense? Number doesn't matter, but have at least 2. And I count a family as 1. So get a couple families together. Bring in some college kids. Bring in some of the other members. Make it a party. Does it only have to be River people? No. In fact, I hope it's not. I hope you're inviting the people that enter the everyday rhythms of your life to sit at your table and to join you in breaking bread. So there need to be at least 2, but beyond that, I'm not going to put a cap on it. I'm not going to limit you. Okay? Your dining room table might limit you, but I'm not going to limit you. Share a meal. Why is that important? There's something that happens when you break bread with someone else. There's a casualness. You let down your guard. Can you get coffee and it be considered a River Together event? Great question. Several people have asked me. I'm not going to say no, but I will tell you there is something special about eating together, breaking bread together, if possible, inviting people into your home, letting them see the real you, opening your life to someone else. It can be done outside of your home. I know for some, meeting up at a park, just due to the number of kids maybe in a family, that might be the best thing. Or maybe you live across town and we're just going to meet halfway. Totally fine. Again, not going to limit, not going to over-engineer. But consider opening your home, opening your life, breaking bread with someone else. College kids, what does this look like for you? Get creative. Get creative. Can you host something in your apartment? Can you meet up outside at a park or on campus? You guys are smart people. You're at the University of Oklahoma. Figure it out. Right? So, share a meal if possible. I know that there are some in here and food allergies are a real thing. I get it. Maybe a meal doesn't work. But get creative. Find a way to share your life, open it up to those within your church. Number 3, ask a marker question. What the heck is a marker question? A couple years ago, 3 years ago, there was a group within this body, and we were tasked with kind of going back and reframing who we are as a church. We'd been around for about 12 years at that point, and so we wanted to make sure that we were still in line with what our mission and vision as a church was and is, that we understood the values of this church, and we knew how in the world to stay on track. And so some of you guys were here. Some of you will remember the framing series that was done 3 years ago. If you weren't here, it's excellent. Get online, look at it. It goes through these different elements: mission, vision, value. And then it has this thing called markers. We used a group called Exano to help facilitate. They're a team of individuals that help churches work through this. And the word they initially had for these marker questions was actually measures. How do you know where you stack up? Measures. And we looked at that word and we said, we don't like that word because measures has the implied or kind of inherent quality that potentially you could fall short of that measure. These questions are not like pass, fail, you stack up or you don't type questions. These are marker questions. We changed the name because what we wanted to do is we wanted to help people understand, am I in line? Am I aligned with what my church believes and what it values? Okay? Well, let me ask these questions. Simple questions. Things like, how are you getting to know God through his word and prayer? Simple question that you could engage with another person on. What has Jesus been saying to you over the past week? What's he been saying to you over the past month? What has he been leading you in? What are you trusting Jesus with? In what ways are you extending love to your family, your neighbors, your coworkers, your strangers, even your enemies? Who are you connecting with? Who are you serving? These all align with one of our 4 values as a church. And if you're curious, we want to be committed to Jesus. We want to grow in Christ-like character. We want to be more like him. We want to invest in the people and community here in our church. And then number 4, we want to be pointing people to Jesus, the external element of all this. We want to be going, reaching, and loving this community, this university, and the ends of the earth. So those are our 4 values. So each of these marker questions, there's about 4 per value, aligns under one of our 4 values and helps us make sure that we are on track. So you might ask, why do we need to ask a marker question when we get together? Well, it's for this reason. When you get together, when you break bread, you're opening your lives to one another. When you engage in a marker question, when you ask someone, so tell me, Danny, what has God been saying to you? What have you seen him say in his word or as you've been spending time with him in prayer? Well, all of a sudden, Danny, when he responds, he's going to open his heart to me. We opened our lives over our meal. We open our hearts to one another through these marker questions. Does that make sense? We want a river together gathering to be special. You know, people get together all the time for a lot of good reasons, and some not so good reasons, but they get together all the time. We want a river together gathering to be something special because you weren't just together, but your hearts were open to one another. That's where the marker questions come in. If you guys have questions, again, afterwards, I'd love to explore this idea more with you. I will be out in the foyer. And I've got a whole list of the marker questions if you're curious. and I'd be happy to talk them through with you. Okay, so you're like, Stuart, enough, we get it. We get it. So how are we going to do this? Well, let's talk about that. Out front on the table, there are a series of these little forks. My wife said they needed to be gold, so they're gold. On the back of this cool little thing that we stayed up late making last night, there's a little thing, a little tag that you fill out, and it just says, who hosted the event? Who was there? Grab one of these on your way out. Make a plan to invite some people to your home this week or next week if you're not free this next weekend. What we're going to do as a church, after each one, bring it back. We're going to put it in here. We're going to watch it fill. As a church, over the next 2 months, as we re-engage in group life, we're going to have a goal of having 50 river together gatherings. We're going to fill this. I threw the idea of 50 out to the elders a couple weeks ago. They're like, 50? That's a lot. The more I thought about it, it might not be enough. It might not be enough. In fact, I challenge you guys, make this jar too small for what we're going to be doing together, collectively, as we share and open our homes and our hearts with one another over the next couple months. So let's wrap this up. I think you guys got the point. You know the direction that we're headed, why we're headed that direction. After May, as we look through the summer, we hope people continue to get together in homes. But this stage of the River Together initiative will wrap, and then we'll re-engage into a more formal, structured group life. At least that's the plan right now. But for the next 2 months, this is what we're going to do. And again, hear me say this. The goal is not to over-engineer and overthink. Are there holes in this idea? Sure. Are there better ways of doing this? Maybe. But our desire is that you're getting together, opening your lives, opening your hearts, and allowing Jesus to create something new among us. Is it going to be hard? Yeah, it probably will be. I've got one in high school. I've got another kiddo in middle school. I've got a third in elementary school. If you've ever tried to do 3 different school drop-offs in one morning, come talk to my wife. She'll commiserate with you. It's a challenge. If you've tried to stack 3 different kiddo extracurricular activities and pack them into a night on a weekly basis, that's another challenge. Soccer games, gymnastics, yeah, it's going to be a challenge for us to be intentional and to have people into our home. Finals, are they on the way? You bet they are. Right around the corner. Elo's back there covering his eyes. He's not looking forward to it. Yeah, it's going to be hard. It's going to be a challenge. And some of you probably look at it right now and are like, let's do this, let's go. I'm going to grab 3 forks this morning. Good. Middle of May. Don't lose steam. There's an interesting passage I ran across in 2 Corinthians 6 this week. Paul's writing to the Corinthians. In verses 11 through 13, he says, our mouth has spoken freely to you, O Corinthians. Our heart is open to you. You are not restrained by us, but you are restrained in your own affections, how you feel toward me. Now in a like exchange, I speak as to children, open wide to us. He continues to write the next paragraph. We call it chapter 7, verse 2. Make room for us in your hearts. Make room for us in your hearts. River, that is my prayer, that over the next 2 months, you would make room for one another in your hearts as we re-engage in what God is doing and this new that he's leading us into. I recognize there are going to be some who are newer, and you're like, man, I don't know anybody, and it might feel really uncomfortable for me to reach out. There's these little QR codes all over the building. Scan it. There's a connection card. If you're interested in, hey, I would love to get involved with River Together, I just don't know how to start. When you go in and fill out your connection card, just add a comment in there. Hey, I would love to engage in this. We'll grab that and we'll connect with you, and we'll help get you connected to someone else. We're happy to do that. Okay. I think you guys got it. I think if I keep on talking, it's just going to be detrimental. So we'll park it. We'll land it. I hope you've heard my heart in this and the heart of the elders. We love you guys. We know that the last 2 years have been an incredible strain. Incredible strain. We also have heard you say, when are we re-engaging? And as we've worked through that, this is the next step. This is how we're going to do it. So now, we're going to hand it off to you guys, okay? And allow you guys to take the next step over the next couple months. Like I said, I'll be in the back. Brent should be back there as well. We'll answer any questions, fill in any holes. You can tell us what we did wrong, what I did wrong, how this idea might not work. We'll talk about it. But please engage. Please engage. Jesus, help us to be a generous church. Help us to be a church that's generous with time, our resources, our money, our homes, and our lives. Help us to be a church that repeatedly sees you water us as we've watered others. As we scatter broadly, we see that you return that to us. That we don't hold back, fearful because we don't know if we have enough, or fearful that you may not have enough. But let us be a church that lives generously. And help this as we move into what you're leading us into, this next that you're leading us into. Will you help River Together be something that we look back on and say, that was transformative, not just for our church, but in my life. Thank you for these people. Thank you for what they're going to do. In your wonderful name, Lord Jesus, we pray. Amen.